during the digital transformation, what is the role of the data science and why it would help? Because we are in a process about changing our whole marketing technology stack, including media stack as well. So we would like to share some of the experience. Nothing so technical today, so because we didn't know the audience and things like that, so we try to make it a little bit in the middle. Yes. So again, me, Mark. So that's the agenda today. Digital science and digital transformation, data science and digital transformation, what and why, and the challenges, the solutions and examples. And also we will talk about a little bit the hypervision about people, about artificial intelligence, machine learning, everything, and the actual when you work in the industry. Awesome, so most of the time when the executive came up and would say, oh, I need digital transformation, but they would just say, I want. You will still need to give the justification about the why. And usually the why is about the traditional approach. If most of the people in most of the traditional or conventional corporation, you are still using a lot of like traditional data warehouse for a reason, right? But if you are only relying on the traditional data warehouse and traditional approaches on doing a lot of things, then it's not only about long data ingestion time, very slow update cycle, expensive and hard to attract talent, and a lot of manual work. I remember in one of the organizations when I walked into, they say, oh, we do data science, our whole company. I was like, that's great. And once I walked into that office, everyone opened an Excel. And that's the only tool. No, Excel is a great product. I always emphasize that Excel is a very great product, but you cannot only. Whenever you put the only after, that's the problem. We'll talk about that a little bit. So then the justification to the executive always is, oh, because transforming to a new technology stack or transforming to another new from on-prem versus on-cloud, you will save money faster and attract more talents, and also you can do more. But also you still need to give the ROI, otherwise how can you get the stack? So that's usually the chart we would give, hey, what's the traditional approach, what is the new things that we are looking at, give a high level first. So just to unify a little bit, for data science, everyone knows that it's technical, math, and business knowledge. So a lot of fresh graduates that start working with us will be like, oh, I'm a data scientist, I'm rocket science, I really want to work on the thing, I just do the math, I just do the statistics, don't talk to me about business. But actually it's not. Without a business SME, then no matter how good you are, you can look at the number, you can interpret the number, but you cannot put up a story. And the story is very important. So all these three factors about data science is you cannot just miss one, or you cannot only have one. That's the problem. But at the same time, you cannot just have business knowledge and put up on your Excel sheet and then you think I can do the analysis and things like that. That's very dangerous. So digital transformation also is a buzzword lately. Everyone talking about that. We are in Miami, all the cruise lines also talking about that. We are in digital transformation, but what does that mean? Yes, we are transforming our Excel sheet to another tool. No, digital transformation is the whole process. It's not only about technology. It's about your culture. It's about your business plus technology. So a lot of people focus on the technology but forgot about the culture. Think about how Capital One changed to the Amazon stack. How many people they train? Over 1,000. Management. So digital transformation is the foundation, but data science is the medium that enable you for the enablement. That's how I would describe that. So let's talk about the what. So the what, usually when you say I need digital transformation, I need data science, I need to set up a team, usually it's about a challenge. Without challenge, you don't improve. The first challenge that we meet is usually is business. So because of the increasing competition, information overload, just like even in the media stack, our previous presenter related to the media technology stack also, it's like in the past 10 years, it's so complicated. I still remember like 15, 20 years ago when I was still in high school, then I still make website, yeah, early 2000. Or late 1990s, something I don't remember. Anyways, so people would call me, wow, your website has like 500 visitors per week. I would like to place an ad on your website. I was like, oh, that's great. That was 15, 20 years ago. That's the case. But nowadays, think about all the ad exchange, all of the ad network, all, for example, DCM, DBM, whatever, all the people were so confusing about, in double-click family, you have that many things? Yes, and also AOP, Yahoo Exchange, all these things. So that's the information overload. Even for only one small stack about media, we are talking about the whole marketing. Media is one part. Only the media is so complicated already. So that's why the information overload. And customer behavior is changing. According to Google and a research firm, they did one thing was like the macro moment about travel business. Every day, the macro moment they define as how many times you pick up your phone and you actually unlock it to see something. Think about that, guess. Every day, how many times we look at our phone and do this action? Huh? No, not that many. About 157 times. But it's the data 1.5 years ago. I don't know now if we change. But still 157 times. If you can capture all these 157 times, let's say 1%, 15 times, it's already pretty good, right? At the right time, you deliver the content, you deliver what your customer needs in 1% of the time is already pretty amazing. So always, just like the marketing, always say who, what, where, when. Those are the general questions that we would like to answer. So the next thing is always technical, because till the end of the day, you have the business challenge, you try to give the ROI, but at the same time, you want to change the technology stack. Sometimes the funny thing, according to my experience, I work in now in Carnival Cruise Line, before was in casino, telecommunication, consulting, hedge fund, different places. The one thing when people talk about technical, I want to spin up this technical stack, partially is about to enhance the business stack, the business improvement. But think about that, most of the time, they want to play around with that. The technical people, they want the new stack, they want to play around with the new technology, and they want to attract more talent. That's exactly the thing, and usually that's the thing that we would put up. Our legacy data processing framework, and usually for a lot of public companies still today, believe it or not, there's no data governance, there's no MDM. People think that, no, those are just management, you are overcomplicating the problem. No, but actually if you are talking about data, you need data governance process in place so that you have different classification. You need the MDM in place so that you don't have your dummy data. Those are very important. People nowadays are too focused on technology. Yes, technology, when you go to your CFO, you can explain to him in so many ways so that you can get your funding. But the process is so important. And also low aggregate view of customers. People would tell you, no, I have my data warehouse. I have manual program to consolidate customer data. But it's not the same. For example, some of the company that I work with, we have hotel system, we have gaming system, we have email system, we have web, we have social, but all this data are not consolidated. But they, of course, they're still making billions of money, but they can make another billion if they consolidate this. So, and also very difficult is most of the companies still are DBMS only, because the digital transformation, the difficult part, the first part is data warehouse. No matter where I go, the most difficult is you need to educate the data warehouse folks. They may be working there since I was 8. So, how can you educate them? You really need to change it. And how do you convince them? It's important that you give the business users, the technical business users, their flexibility to do their work. Because one of the challenges in most of the organization is like, IT keep getting requests. Oh, add another column, transform this format, transform this data set, add another column. But all this can be avoided if you set up your technology stack correctly and make the business users, the technical business users, take their own responsibility. And of course, analytics environment. So a lot of companies still rely on the heavy duty ETL every day. Not talking anything new. No matter it's ETL, ELT, you need to wait. Some people put up a Hadoop, but just putting there and processing few files. Yeah, I'm using my Hadoop technology stack, but not the way. So lack of computing power, again, because usually, especially public company, we get used to the CapEx model, right? So how to transform from a CapEx model to an OpEx model, which means running on premises to the cloud, it's a long journey. It's the educational process to the senior management. Because most of the time I found out most of the argument through organization is not about personal. Most of them are just because of educational gap. It's just like they don't understand. So you just need to make them understand why the cloud is better in your situation. I'm not saying cloud is always better. For some situation, you really need to have the on-prem stack to service your need. So, yes. And the last one and the most important one, culture. So, again, it's like, think about that. Manual work, no problem. No matter what, it's very difficult at this stage, I mean this time T today, to change everything. Say no manual is still very difficult. And Excel is a great product, SAS is a great product. The only caveat and only problem is whenever you put a only after them. Manual only, SAS only, Excel only. That's the problem. That's always the problem. I never seen if you put an only out behind any of those technology stack, you still find. No, maybe based on my limited experience, I just couldn't find one. And data visualization and business intelligence. Before we talk about data science, it's always EAD. What is that? So engineering, analytics, and data science. Without E, without the A, how can you get to the D? So a lot of people, a lot of organizations, they forget about the data visualization. Always put up, oh, this time is my Excel sheet, this is my visualization, and let's store the PDF, because no executive like to click the link. They like PDF on their phone. But the problem is it limits what you can see and always generate questions to your analyst, always the ad hoc requests. And also programming is like, people ask, oh, what is the best for me to learn if I want to be a data scientist? You don't need to say there's nothing the best. Just think about what is suitable for you. For people who came out from financial engineering, statistics, if you're so familiar with R, just use your R. Nowadays, a lot of different framework already can interpret the language to the executable. So why bother? Just use it. But if you are so fascinating to something you really think that you need to change, fine, just pick one, it's okay. And some people also have the barrier in their mind like, oh no, I only know SQL, I cannot do data science. Which is not true. Take a look at Pivotal Hawk. You can run algorithm in SQL and other package as well. So, and the change management, this is the biggest challenge. People are afraid of change, and the sentence that we always hear is about, no matter which organization we're talking about, it's like, I've been doing this for years, why should I change? It works, our company making money, why should I change? Because there is something better. Very simple answer, but it takes a long time for people to understand. And most of the time, the difficulty also is like experience-driven versus data-driven. A lot of different cases, I'm not going to elaborate, but most of the time it's like, also, although the data says so, but whenever the but comes out, you lose. Because it's like the data already telling you the truth. Why don't try it out? But this is the cultural problem, especially in big corporations. So given all this, let's talk about the how. So leverage data science during the digital transformation. Data science is not just a term, it's an approach, it's a methodology. Although it's a little bit broad, a little bit general, just change data science to anything you like. That's why it's an approach framework. Don't think data science is a so fancy thing, it's a one thing. No, it's just a framework. It's just a directional. It's just a direction approach. So, but for consumer-based company like us, the thing we want to do is we really want to build aggregate view of customer profiles, capture customer preference so that we can do analytics, and then we can leverage the insight to contact our customer at the right time, at the right pace, through the right media. So that once we do that, we can learn more about you and make decision, the next best action, what do you want. So this caused another argument. The first thing people came up would be, the privacy issue. But think about that, that's good already. We're in USA, so the law is pretty good about privacy. So I may be able to identify you through your online signatures, cookies, everything. But nowadays, I'm not allowed to try to transform that to your real identity. I'm just not allowed. You still can find a way if you have 500 features. 500 is roughly the number. If you have 500 features online about a person, then you can pretty easily reveal their true identity. Of course, you can argue, even if I have a cool DMP, I can just get your email address or the phone number, then I can get some of the information. Do you have kid, how much tax you're paying, etc., etc. Yes, but still, the law regulates the DMP, they cannot reveal your true identity, but only your features. So no worries about that. But in some country, in one of the countries that because I had the global data science team before in one of the organizations, in one of the countries in Asia, I saw that was like, they did an experiment. They asked me to use my cell phone to browse a website, and then on the screen, they list all of the websites that I browsed in the past 60 minutes. And lucky I didn't do anything. Weird. But that's the case. But in US, not yet. We are not there. That's a good thing. As a consumer, I would say, oh, that's good. But again, depends on which position you're at. So examples. I will leave to Mark to explain a little bit about the examples.
Can I go to that? I'll go to that side. Yeah, sure. So Kevin has done a nice job really laying out the overall challenges and opportunities in our business today. I'm going to kind of get into more of the details of, the how you can kind of leverage this digital transformation with data science to, really leverage value to the business. So one of the big things right now is, in addition to the insights we can get from data, there's more channels to get that data from. So, we have email in the form of digital, we have social media. In social media, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, and basically, there's tons of this digital data and tons of channels where we can engage with our customers. So really, we have to figure out in the marketing department, what is our budget channel mix for where we can, attract the most business through what channels, and by doing that, we need to kind of figure out where is the audience that we're trying to communicate with, where do they interact? So, your older generations, your baby boomers, they're more engaged through some things like traditional mail, email, things that are, the legacy technologies that have been around a while, and traditional methods like mail. And then Generation X and millennials are, the generation that really was the driver of email, and really, they were using Facebook, and basically through Facebook, we can understand more information about their demographic. What are your likes on Facebook? What are your favorite movies? What are your favorite destinations? And based on that information, we can target individuals where we feel that they have a very similar profile to our ideal customer. And the hard part with that, though, is companies like Facebook and Google, they have walls set up to make it very difficult for your privacy to get all that information. So a bit of it is getting people's consent to share certain information to give us that greater detail, and then some of it we just can't get. So the next slide. Okay, so the most recent generation, some people call it Generation Z, is using primarily digital channels through social media. So they're using technologies for different use cases within social. So, for Snapchat, you have people who are using it to create experiences, putting together a whole bunch of things to recapture a moment. Leading into that, Instagram, people wondered when Facebook purchased them why they need to do that, and now no one's questioning that, because what Instagram really does is it's about capturing moments through photography, and through that they can do machine learning and understand things about what activities people are doing, what kind of things that people are engaged most on, and then Twitter really being able to figure out from relationships who you follow, what your interests are, your tweets, understanding, doing analysis of the text in your tweets, really being able to understand, your profile. So you have all these different channels, and if you think about it, they all have different nuances that make them different. So, engaging through them in terms of a marketing campaign is different if you go through mail or if you put up a targeted advertisement on Twitter. So one of the things in data science and marketing is propensity modeling, figuring out the probability of someone buying, and then of people who will buy, what is the lifetime value of that customer? So, really you can figure out based on certain evidence that the potential customer has in their profile, you can use Bayesian inference to figure out, okay, given this evidence, what is the likelihood, they like to go to the Caribbean, they are, 32 years old, they have a family. Based on these different factors, how likely it is they are to buy. And then based on those factors and some additional factors, what are the buying behaviors based on income level, different features that we learn about them through these channels. And then being able to say, okay, we have a marketing budget, we have enough to target 10,000 people through the mail. We can offer this exclusive offer to 100,000 people. Really, how do we figure out who the most valuable customers we can acquire? How do we ensure that we're not targeting our existing customers, because those people might book that offer anyway, or an offer that's not as big of a discount, and we can gain additional revenue. So really, it's kind of understanding your customer in terms of who you are, your existing customer base of who you tend to generate the most revenue from, and then kind of figuring out the similar profiles of the people that you would like to attract. And then from an existing customer standpoint, you have all this previous booking data of what rooms they book, how much they spent, being able to figure out based on that, what would they be interested in buying going forward. So you can send them, you can figure out, if you understand what they bought in the past, where there might be opportunities to kind of get them to buy additional things, additional shore excursions, onboard drinks, things that maybe they have no record of buying in the past but could bring in additional revenue. So I think really being able to understand the customer and then being able to model and target offers to those customers, I think is a very big opportunity and a way to kind of maximize the effectiveness of, say, a marketing campaign. So in terms of content personalization, we talk about this internally lots of times, and every company in any type of business selling something experiences this. If you get inundated with an email every day about a promotion, you're going to stop looking at it. You're going to say, okay, they send this all the time. So it's a bit of trying to catch people with kind of let me read about this type thing. Also the subject matter and content of what it is, being able to get them to click the email, which is called the click through, and then additionally continue further into the funnel of purchasing something. So really what we're trying to do is identify how we can engage our customer the most, and then part of that is understanding the demographics, so the age, how they consume digital, how they consume non-digital media, and then additionally kind of bringing in some of their booking history in terms of do they do a lot of big group trips where they're booking 6 cabins and booking suites? Do they just book an interior room every time? Understanding from this previous behavior, really, okay, maybe we could recommend, we don't do this today, but maybe we could recommend the exact room they always book on a certain sailing, and that would kind of get them to think about, okay, maybe I can afford this, maybe I can just, similar to Amazon with one-click buying, just one-click cruising, where you could click a proposed cruise deal with the exact room that you want, and you would go right through to what you want. That's kind of what we could leverage in terms of understanding our customers' behavior, and then really kind of similarly focusing that content based on that person's interest. And basically, similar to what I've been talking a lot about, this example recently of Netflix. Netflix does something where they're not just recommending things exactly like what you want. There's a serendipitous effect of what they do is they want to find people who are similar to you, who might watch something you don't watch, that has nothing to do with what you watch, because then it expands your consumption of the product, and then you're more entrenched in the service. So, if we can get someone to buy a drink package who's never bought a drink package before, maybe in the future, every time they cruise, they'll buy a drink package. So basically trying to figure out what are some additional opportunities to kind of, get them to purchase an additional item that they might not have purchased without this. So a big thing right now is all about social relationship mapping. This is, I think, from AWS, a graph map. So for instance, basically, we and all technology companies are trying to figure out the different, relationships of what you do, who you're acquainted with, what they do, and then seeing if there's a pattern between what they do and what you do, and if there's a missing piece, something they do that you don't, maybe recommending that to you. And similarly here, people who might follow sports, and you follow sports, we can make a recommendation based on your interests. So something like on Twitter, if you're following a certain person, like in a certain industry, we can maybe recommend a certain product to you based on what your interests are on social media. And then basically here, an additional one is really understanding if there's a bunch of entity relationships of places, people, things, how do we fill a gap in predicting what you might be interested in or something similar to what you've previously done? How do we predict that from maybe your social network? Being able to say, okay, in this example, right, Bill visited the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower is located in Paris. Paris is a city, and the Louvre is located in Paris. So maybe, we should recommend the Louvre since you're in Paris, because Bob, who is a friend of Alice, who is a person who is related to Bill, went to the Louvre, who saw the Mona Lisa at the Louvre. So maybe they go to the Louvre, and then once they're in the Louvre, we're recommending, make sure you see the Mona Lisa while you're there. So that's an example of, trying to extrapolate a relationship and make a recommendation based on patterns that we're seeing in a network. So the next, real big challenge is text analysis. So it's really, really challenging if you think about it. And this is why the whole AI thing currently is a little overblown, is that machines are trained in a very specific domain. And as soon as you change one variable in there, it can get completely thrown off. If you think about words like bad, they can mean so many different things in so many different industries that, if you said like that was a really bad cruise, does that mean it's bad, or does it mean that it's like slang for bad? So trying to figure that out on context is very difficult. And so you're trying to figure out sentiment, you're trying to figure out the domain that you're looking at, and you're trying to, so you're trying to put all this together to figure out what are people excited about. What are people excited about, right now going to the Bahamas? Trying to figure out what things are people, where are there trends in our social media that are mentioning Carnival, for instance, that could be helpful in terms of what our promotions we offer, where things seem to be trending to. So really, that's really difficult. And if you look here, you can get all these inputs from people's Facebook, Twitter, and different things, but the hard part is that you don't know what they're talking about all the time, the subject, the context they're in. If they're talking about Game of Thrones, or they're talking about a cruise they went on, it's very hard to kind of figure out. You have to train each of those domains in machine learning to kind of be independent of one another, because they have different topics that mean different things across them. So that's really one of the challenges in the text domain, of really being able to understand that, because then you also have language barriers. So you can do, such as like Google has, like Google Translate, and you can translate something literally, but across languages, there can be nuances in the language that mean something else. So there's all these different hurdles in terms of language and doing it. So I mean, companies that are leading the way in this, like Google, I mean, they even struggle with this. I mean, how many times do you say something to a vocal recognition and it might not understand the next step that you would like to take? It just happens, with people yelling at Siri all the time and things like that. So I think really, it's just proof of how hard it is. And when you see world-class companies who are struggling with this, it kind of is a sign to me that, the average company is going to have more trouble even adopting this. So I think it's something that we, as a company, I think see the value in and we would like to do. It's just that it's very difficult because it takes a lot of nuance with your industry and with your use cases to kind of understand exactly, how to make sure that the information you're getting is valuable and it's accurate. So, some interesting facts. The average social media usage per person is about 2 hours per day, and active and background usage provides a new way to kind of engage people that we hadn't had in years past. So for instance, being able to, you might follow some famous person on Facebook and, they might endorse some product, and based on that, you might, that's network effect. By basically maybe having someone endorse a product, we're able to then drive, additional sales by having that person endorse the product. So understanding that, that's, the network effect. And then additionally, ways to engage them through it. So things that are hot right now, like messenger bots. So the ability to kind of engage on a platform that you're comfortable with and, complete a transaction. Recently, Facebook, who is one of the bigger bot technology makers right now, they actually shut down their own AI bot because they actually had assumed they could make a concierge bot that could do all these things for you, and they couldn't automate it about 30%. So it became a big high cost for them, so they ended up just killing the project. So if a company like Facebook that's first in class in AI is unable to automate about 30%, you can kind of figure you're gonna have similar challenges as in your business doing that. So I think, I've seen a lot of things that are cautionary tales in this space, and I think there are a lot of opportunities as well in terms of being able to have targeted advertising, having abilities to leverage top influencers in your space to kind of help drive the brand, I think is a really powerful tool. But I think at the same time, if you have people who are using things like a messenger bot and they're having terrible interactions with it, it's going to hurt your relationship with the customer. So you need to be mindful of that when you're experimenting with these tools. And so it's kind of like you have to be careful because in one hand, you can increase engagement. On the other hand, you could ruin the relationship. So I think you have to kind of find that sweet spot and make sure that you're testing it and that you're making sure that you're not risking your business on a technology you might not understand or might not be all it's been made out to be. So like I was saying, stronger engagement. One of the interesting things is, I don't know if, I've actually created some Alexa skills, and one of the interesting things is, I don't know if probably I'm guessing like everyone here has one. I'm just going to guess. Basically, it's using natural language processing to translate what you're asking. And so what they have is they have something called an intent and a slot. And so what you do is you basically will launch a skill. Say you want to. We're talking about Capital One before. Capital One has a banking skill. You want to complete a transaction. So what you do is you might say, Alexa, open Capital One skill. And then once you do that, it'll say, what kind of transaction would you like to do today? Then there's basically a sequence of events that occur based on the transaction that you do. So if you want to make a deposit, it'll say, how much, what type of deposit, and et cetera. But if you think about it, it's only figuring out it knows the response for the most part that you're going to give, such as you're going to just say a dollar amount. You're not going to give the entire, it's not going to have to decipher a meaning from what you're saying. So I think a lot of these technologies that get people to believe that these technologies are way ahead of where they are, they're a lot simpler in certain ways than you would expect. And so I think, like I was mentioning earlier, you have to ensure you have a smooth interaction. If you have someone on a chatbot who asks a question that gets misinterpreted and we offer the wrong response, then there's a penalty in terms of that customer's relationship with us. So I think there's concerns with that, but I think there also are opportunities in terms of cost savings on the customer service side of not having to have a person wait on a phone and talk to a person to complete a transaction. Being able to talk to a messenger bot and complete that transaction, I think is valuable. But at the same time, people have very high expectations of they want a machine to replicate exactly what a human can do, and it can't most of the time. So I think really that's the thing you have to kind of figure out is can you get it to a place where it's an acceptable way of using it, and if it is, then maybe it's worth exploring. But you can't just make it about using cool technology or saving money, because if you do, it's short-sighted and you could end up having a detrimental effect on the business. Next. So now we're going to get into a really cool, one of my favorite areas, image and video analysis. So this is kind of an area of AI and deep learning where we're talking about, so this is a convolutional neural network. I don't know how many of you are familiar with them, but basically this is how images are, how, for instance, if you want to have an image detected of a cat, how it works is it basically puts the cat there and it knows nothing about the cat. It then is looking at the pixels in the picture and it's slicing and dicing them in rows, like you can see here, and it's making a transformation of all the different colors, geometric features, and positioning. And what it's doing is it's trying to figure out, okay, what are the features that are present with a cat? And then you're putting things through it that are not as that might be somewhat similar, but they're not cats. And you're labeling them as something that's not a cat. And so then what it's trying to do is figure out the differences between the cat and everything else. So that's how you train it, and that's why it's so painful. I don't know if anyone watches Silicon Valley, but the whole not hot dog thing on Silicon Valley, they were all excited about training, this food app, and they realized that they were going to put so many different training images in there for every position, every angle, every size, everything. It just becomes a really hard problem. So I think this is one of the reasons why it's so hard. AI and deep learning, these concepts have been here a while. What's really been the catalyst and enabler of this is computing power and GPU acceleration and tensor acceleration have made it easier to do these equations and solve these problems a lot faster. But they're still very difficult and a lot of trial and error. And it's not like a human where you can extrapolate from if you know something about one thing that you can apply to something else. You have to train every isolated instance with machine learning, and then from that, it can now apply that when it sees something similar. So I think that's really the limitation of it. But where I was going with this is for us in our industry, we have so many people who take pictures on our ships and take videos. So we can understand through that, what do people like to do? What do they like to take pictures of? And so being able to detect an object like, they're buying a coconut and drinking out of it on a ship, that's an activity. So being able to figure out, okay, is someone happy in this moment, so kind of correlating someone's feeling about an activity that they're taking a picture of. Being able to detect an activity, so if someone has a ton of pictures of them kayaking, we can extract from that they like to go kayaking. And then really being able to see if they like a lot of things with the sea, or if they like a lot of things with nature, we can kind of understand the scene. And so really I think for us, we think that we can, for instance, people's Facebook images and Instagram images, there's lots of opportunity there to understand what people are excited about and may not put into words. So this is another thing that, that's really hot right now, but it's still very, I think it's kind of an oversold area in terms of where it is, in terms of their companies, they're ahead of the times, like Google Photos, where it can detect the picture you're taking and then kind of apply an automatic filter and things like that. But everyday companies, for us to train every possible activity that could be, of interest, for every person of every age and all these combinations, the amount of training, labeled training you would have to do for all these would be extremely high and extremely labor intensive. So I think that's the real hurdle with it right now, and I think we'd love to kind of incorporate more of this into the business, but it's very difficult to kind of make a robust solution with this. So I think that's one of the things you have to be mindful of when you hear a lot of things about image analysis, AI, different things with image recognition, just in terms of most of these are founded on deep learning models that are pre-made for you, and if they go off course a little bit, it's really hard not having a PhD in neural networks to really go back and say, let me break this down, let me tweak this. So I think that's really most of this is black box to to people. So I think really that's one of the difficulties and challenges people face with trying to do some of this advanced detection that I'm talking about right here. So similar to what I was just touching upon, the reality is the big drivers for a lot of this have been the computing power, the big shift from CPUs to GPUs for machine learning to deep learning has really been a thing that's really been a catalyst for a lot of things in the cloud and technologies that you're seeing. I think while the issue is though, and I've been reading a lot about this, is that the foundations and the concepts that everything is based on, these are like things that are really old, like 30 years old. It's just that the computational power wasn't there prior. So really, I think the opportunity is there in terms of the infrastructure now that the hardware is caught up. But for instance, on Amazon, Google, all these different platforms, they have tons of different APIs and pre-made tools that do text analysis, image analysis, video analysis in the cloud. But like I was mentioning before, unless you have a use case that fits exactly what their pre-trained models do, it's a big challenge to leverage that. And so what I was saying before, I've been reading a lot about how their new methods people are trying to develop, because they've kind of hit a wall in terms of the deep learning as we have it today. So the truth is that a lot of these big fears of things happening with AI are, I think, a little overblown, because I think they're still waiting a big knowledge explosion for the next big advance in deep learning or something similar. And so I think a lot of people, my friends, they want to go straight to deep learning. But one of the things that I say to them is that unless you really understand machine learning in depth, you really shouldn't even look at deep learning, because it's something it'll scare you, or you'll use and then it'll get you into a lot of trouble. And so I think one of the things that I notice, and I don't know if Kevin would agree on, but is that everyone is trying to sell, whether it's the cloud or consultancies or whatever. A lot of them are using buzzwords like AI and machine learning and things like that. I think what's really important is that you educate yourself on what the realities are of where things are today, and making sure that you understand the nuances of what they're doing and what you're trying to do, because I think people overestimate how much they can leverage this stuff, and they think that they'll get a huge breakthrough with it. And I think you should really start small before you go big with this stuff, because if you build something really big, you get your company to put a lot of money behind it, and then it could scare off the company from these technologies for a long time if it comes back to bite them. So I think it's just really important to kind of make sure that you're knowledgeable about all these topics yourself, even if you're not an expert, and then start small and work your way incrementally up. Don't look for a one-stop shop that's going to solve everything. You need to really kind of start from the ground up, build a really strong analytical team who really understands the different concepts, and then kind of work from there. And if you need assistance or there's technology, you'll know where to put it into, where it can help you. So I think that's really what I want to end with, is just be cautious and make sure we're in an age where a lot of people oversell information, oversell things. Make sure you understand where things are in the world today, because no one has a magical solution that's ahead of the times. So I think you really have to just understand where the technology is, where people's knowledge of it is, and really understand what's realistic with what you can work with today.